Welcome to Live Breathe Film, episode 91. You're here with Corey, Doug, and Murph. Thank you for joining us. Today, in preparation for Martin Scorsese and Leonardo DiCaprio's next collaboration, Killers of the Flower Moon, we're going to rank each of our 5 favorite performances from one of the most prolific actors of the past 30 years. We're not limiting it to his 5 movies so far with Marty. This will be his overall filmography. And then stay tuned after as we wrap things up and see how our fall box office pool is shaking up. All right, so let's get right into it. Our favorite Leonardo DiCaprio performances. What we did here was each of us ranked our top 5 performances. There was a good amount of overlap. We'll talk about that as we go along. And then what we did was put a combined average. What we'll do is we'll start with the average from bottom to top. So we don't talk about performances over and over again or spoil where people ultimately rank them individually. But there were 8 performances on here. Of the 8 performances, there were 2 ties. So we'll start with the first tie, which is our 6th place performances. And those are Jack Dawson in Titanic and Hugh Glass in The Revenant. I'll start with Jack Dawson, as I was the only one to put him on my list. He was in 5th place on my list of performances. Ultimately, it was the breakthrough performance that I saw him in, and he still, he just understood the assignment. It's not like the toughest performance or the most showy performance, I would say. I'd say it's just like a movie star performance that instantly made everyone like him. To note, we didn't include none of the movies that he made prior to Titanic were included on any of our lists. So he had breakthroughs prior, whether it's What's Eating Gilbert Grape, where he was Oscar nominated, or Romeo and Juliet, which is, I guess we were probably 9-10 years old at the time when that came out. So that was probably the first thing I was ever aware of him just from trailers. But Titanic was the first thing I ever saw him in. And his chemistry with Kate Winslet is off the charts. Really kind of, I would say, got robbed of an Oscar nomination. I don't see how you can nominate Kate Winslet's Rose without nominating Leonardo DiCaprio's Jack for the 1998 Academy Awards. But yeah, he ultimately, they're just co-leads. You're following both their stories from beginning to end. His end being more tragic, a little sooner. It's debatable about the door, about whether he should have went on it or not. He ultimately went with the more chivalrous route and didn't have the science that we have now that were mythbusters that tell you that he would have survived had he gone on the door with Rose. But
Cameron will fight you if you.
Oh, Cameron now admits it. Cameron admits it now. When Way of Water came out, he was like, yeah, he would have. They both could have survived in the door. I probably should have made the door a little bit smaller. But Jack did what he had to do to ensure Rose's survival. But yeah, like I said, it was just a movie star performance. I don't think anyone could say they didn't like him in the film. There's a reason.
Yeah, his main job in that movie was to just be charming.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. He's just supposed to be a charming poor guy.
Exactly. And then he gets to be the action hero in the second half of the movie.
Yeah. And he knocks it out of the park, and wound up being a heartthrob for a lot of young women during that period of time. So
yeah. But yeah, the movie, it really is 2 halves, and like you said, that really describes it well, action hero in the second half, and then the way you described him, charming, et cetera, just a heartthrob in like the first half. But yeah, just a movie star performance, and I know he wasn't like thrilled. Like he had to get talked into making this movie. Like he wanted to do Boogie Nights.
Mm-hmm.
Like, but ultimately, I think the path for him to become a superstar was doing Titanic, and I mean, Boogie Nights is one of my all-time favorite movies, and while Leo probably would have been great in it, I mean, he would have been great in it. I, for some reason, I think Mark Wahlberg was the right choice for that role, and Leo, he couldn't have played it better than Mark Wahlberg, which is crazy because I think Leo could probably play any role better than Mark Wahlberg, but for some reason, he was perfect for that. So I think both their careers ended up working out perfectly because Leo ultimately took Titanic, which was the easier role, but in a way, it isn't as easy as it looks because it's hard to make everyone like you. But yeah, that's Titanic. Jack Dawson tied at number 6 with Hugh Glass in The Revenant. And Corey, you had Hugh Glass as your number 5 pick. You were the only one to include him. So why don't you talk about Hugh Glass?
So it's funny that you mentioned like Jack, as it wasn't really a complicated role, not really a showy type of performance, whereas now with Hugh Glass was way more of like a showy type of performance for him. You know, the role asked a lot of him, which I thought was really interesting. Physically, definitely range acting. He did a lot of things in this movie that I don't think we've ever really seen before. So he plays, and he's a real person, right? Hugh Glass, wasn't he?
I don't think it was based on a true story.
Okay. It was based on a book.
Based on a book. Okay.
I haven't seen this movie, so don't spoil anything.
Perfect. So I won't.
Yes, it's based in part on a 2002 novel.
Okay.
The Revenant. Hugh Glass is real. You were right.
Real? Okay.
Yeah, it's based on a book, based on a real person.
So
there we go.
Hugh Glass was like an explorer for the U.S. government, you know, throughout was it like the late 1800s, I think. And
or it was early 1800s.
Early 1800s.
1823.
Okay. And he you know, he took part in just a lot of different expeditions and lived off the land. He was, you know, someone who understood the land, you know, in like the Midwest especially. And Leonardo DiCaprio took on this role and did a lot of, they filmed this movie completely on location. And like I said, it asked a lot from him physically. And the role itself was very showy in that way. Especially with the type of character who's playing a, you know, very weathered type of guy, not really a pretty boy at all. And like just
no, he's a gruff frontiersman.
Exactly. And then I'm sure, I mean, everyone has seen, you know, the clip of him getting ripped apart by the bear. Obviously that wasn't really a bear. It was done with practical effects and a mixture of special effects. But like he sold it. Like that must be really hard to do for an actor to make something fake like that believable physically. So you could see that he does a lot of that throughout the movie. So I guess really the physicality of it I thought was great, and he really brought that character to life. And it's a pretty depressing movie. It's not happy.
No, it's definitely not a fun ride.
No. But I think it's out of the movies that he's done, and he's done quite a bit, and he's done, you know, some different roles. I think this was one where he never did this type of role before, and he really knocked it out of the park. It just shows how much range Leo has.
Yeah. So, Doug, since you haven't seen the film, I'll weigh in here. So this is the film that finally nabbed Leo an Oscar. He won Best Actor.
Yep.
For this 2015 performance. In between a couple nominated roles that we're going to talk about later on our list, two of which I believe should have been ones that he got it for. I've beef with this movie in the fact that like it seemed like an awards bait type movie, and the fact that I'm frustrated that it came out the same year as Mad Max Fury Road, and Fury Road, they were like the two like polar opposite extreme movies, like one in the desert, one in the freezing cold, and like Mad Max won like so many of the Academy Awards that year, but then when it came down to the big awards, it was like, all right, we'll give it to The Revenant, like for Best Director and Best Actor. Not that I thought Tom Hardy deserved to be Best Actor. I mean, he wasn't even the best actor. He doesn't even give the best performance in his movie.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think George Miller should have won Best Director for the film. But I need to see it again, I think, because I only have seen it the one time in theaters. At this point, it's a long time ago, practically 8 years, or practically 9 years. Jesus Christ, or no, practically 8 years. Sorry.
Yeah, almost 8 years.
Yeah, because he came at the end of 2015. But it's absolutely a very strong performance. Deserved the nomination. I can't argue him winning the award. I just think he's given better performances where he was nominated or wasn't nominated, where he should have like gotten that overdue award. And we'll get to that in a little bit.
I think a lot of it for this, it seems like the role was so different from anything that he's done before, and obviously timing. And I think that's why he ended up getting it because
timing plays a big factor.
Yeah, he totally should have gotten it before, like that, no question. But I think that might have been part of it.
And looking at his competition that year, he beat Bryan Cranston in Trumbo, Matt Damon in The Martian, Michael Fassbender in Steve Jobs, and Eddie Redmayne in The Danish Girl. So, I mean, it wasn't the strongest year in competition. Probably would have gave it to Fassbender.
Same.
But what are you going to do? All right, well, let's go on to our next pick, which is not a tie. We have at number 5, Dom Cobb in Inception. Doug was the only one to rank this performance, and he put this as he ranked it at number 4. While I mentioned before, I ranked Jack Dawson at 5, and Corey ranked Hugh Glass at 5. So this gave Dom Cobb the edge. Please talk about Dom Cobb. Dom Cobb. You say that a lot of times, and it's
it's kind of like a
tongue twister.
Interesting name for Nolan to come up with.
Well, and he actually, the main character, one of the main characters in Following, his name is Cobb. So he actually went back to his debut film that basically nobody saw, with titling this character. But please, Doug, talk about Dom.
Yeah, I just think Leo got to kind of show a lot of different, lots of different facets of this character. The character was, in some parts he's James Bond, action agent. Other parts he's sad dad who's trying to get to see his children again. And then the last part, which I think is the part that really kind of made me think about this role in a way that wanted to put him on this list, is just kind of the husband who's lost his wife and just kind of going through that experience and seeing, like, one of the scenes that kind of stick out to me is just, when his wife Mal, at the time, when they get trapped in the dream world, and she gets disillusioned and tries to kill herself, or does kill herself. I mean, that's a pretty emotional moment. I thought Leo really sold it. When they're trapped in the dream world and they've got to kind of take a chance with the train coming, where they could potentially die or they could potentially wake up, and they're kind of just holding each other. I thought it was a really emotional scene, really well done too. So I think I chose this because I think he really sold the believability of him being a James Bond character, but also, landing the emotional moments where he's just, a loving husband or a loving dad. And I thought, he sold both of those really well. And I don't think without him selling it, the movie would be anywhere near as good as it was. Because he's basically the heart of the movie.
Yeah, no, he definitely is the heart of the movie. Corey, do you have anything you'd like to say before I jump in? I don't want to monopolize the conversation.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really have anything specific to say. I mean, I definitely will echo his performance in the very dramatic scenes. I thought he was really good. I mean, he's good in all of his movies, but I thought those scenes, especially with Marion Cotillard, were very strong in the movie. But this one as a whole just doesn't resonate for me.
As far as myself, it was cool seeing Leo in an action movie. This is like his first big, I guess, big mainstream blockbuster since Titanic, and it was 13 years later. He had a lot of hits, but they weren't conventional hits. But this is just a straight up Christopher Nolan, James Bond-ish,
was Blood Diamond
sci-fi action film. Blood Diamond did pretty well, but I'd still label that more as a drama than an action movie.
I still never seen that.
I mean, he was nominated for an Academy Award for Blood Diamond, and it's not on any of our lists.
I thought about it.
I've never. I need to see it. Actually, that's a reminder.
It's a good movie.
Yeah, Doug, you and I put that one in theaters back in the day. But with Inception, it was weird in the fact that it came out the same year as Shutter Island, and they have an eerie amount of similarities, both in themes and the characters, and similar to what you were saying about him being a loving father and husband, and he deals with the death of his wife in that movie in a different way, but deals with his wife's insanity in that movie, and then he's
more unhinged though in Shutter Island.
He's much more unhinged.
It's it's a different dynamic.
Yes, you don't in Shutter Island. By the end of the movie, you know that he is in fact he has lost his mind. In Inception, Christopher Nolan plays it more ambiguous. Is he choosing to live in a dream world where he's happy, or did he actually make it back? That's a whole another debate. I like to think he made it back, but there were
he doesn't have the ring in the final scene. Is
that the clincher that it is a real thing, or that he's still in a dream?
That's what the internet says, because in the dream world he always has his wedding ring on because he's married in the dream world. In the real world, he doesn't wear a wedding ring.
Okay, but could he not? Counterpoint. Could
he
take off the ring because he had that final experience with Mal, where when he's in the dream world, and then he's no longer wearing it in the dream world. And again, that would also make him less susceptible to believing he's in the dream world if he's continuing to wear the ring.
But that top was wobbling pretty hard.
I thought the top was wobbling. Yes, I thought the top was wobbling hard as well. Mm-hmm. First time I saw the movie, I was like, okay, that shit's falling. Loved the fact that it threw up directed by Christopher Nolan before it actually fell. But the sound and the picture in IMAX, full-size IMAX, made it seem like it was falling.
Yeah, that's always been my opinion, is that top was about to fall. I think it was genius to cut it where they did, but
yes. Yeah. So great performance, as well as his performance as Teddy Daniels in Shutter Island, which was not included on any of our lists. But there were a lot of similarities to those roles, to both of those roles, and they both are Great performances. All right, let's move on to our number 4 pick, which is Rick Dalton in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. So our first Tarantino performance on here. Honestly, it could have been easy to just go with Tarantino and Scorsese picks, but we did mix up our performances, included a few other directors. But yeah, Corey, you and Doug both had Rick Dalton on your list. Doug, you had it Rick at number 5, and Corey, you had Rick at number 2. This was the toughest omission for me, one that might end up moving up on the list down the line. Yeah, why don't you two start talking about Rick Dalton, why you included him?
So, this one for me is so strong because of how charismatic Rick Dalton is, and just how charismatic Leo plays this role. On top of it, he has a supporting actor with Brad Pitt that, you know, I feel like pushes him even further in the movie. And it's just, there's just so many great moments in this film with him or with both of them that are, they're just memorable. It's very well written, as Quentin Tarantino movies are. And I think Leonardo DiCaprio is one of the few actors that Tarantino works with where he always fits so well in the grand scheme. He does the Tarantino isms very well, and I don't think every actor that Tarantino works with executes it as, you know, as well as others. He's definitely one of them.
Doug?
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with everything Corey said. I think what I like about this role, which Corey also said, is, you know, the fact that it's kind of like a two-hander. It's like him and Brad Pitt are basically co-starring in this movie, and their chemistry is really freaking good, and it's kind of maybe now that we talked about Titanic with like the co-lead, it's kind of like a similar thing. But even though I would never think of these two movies together,
No.
but yeah, just like the chemistry that they had and how well they played together, and I thought Leo did a fantastic job, and it was only elevated by Brad Pitt and the way that those two played off of each other throughout the movie.
Yeah, it's so, like, this one was so tough to, like, rank, just because, like, I think Leo absolutely fucking crushes it in this film. Yet Brad Pitt, I think, gives a better performance in the film. Or at least he has the showier role.
The more fun performance he's got.
He's got the more fun performance. I mean, Leo has probably the best scene in the entire movie when he has the breakdown and the trailer. Like, that's probably the best overall performance anyone gives in the entire film. But then also Brad Pitt when he's high as hell and has and just fucking annihilates the Manson family. Like, and then his entire scene when he's on Spawn Ranch. Like, my God. The two of them both should have won the Academy Awards that year for Best Actor and Best Supporting Actor. But yeah, they really are co-leads. Like, I know it's the two of them and Margot Robbie above the title for this film. But it, like, Margot has, like, so little to do in the film. It really is, like, it's Leonardo DiCaprio and Brad Pitt's film. But yeah, man, killer performance. And yeah, this was the one that came out after The Revenant. That I was mentioning earlier, where I was like, and if you got your belated win, I think it should have been the movie before or after The Revenant. This was the one that was after The Revenant.
I mean, both of them, but since we're talking about Leo, like, the way that he executes, like, the comedic aspect in this movie is just so good. I mean, he does it in other movies we're going to talk about too, but he's able to do drama so well and then pivot almost immediately and do, you know, something incredibly funny and witty,
Yeah.
which works very well with how Tarantino works, because you'll go from one scene which is like, holy shit, that was gruesome, or that was really serious, to a funny moment, like almost immediately. It's all over the place a lot of times. So he does that very well.
Yep. All right. And yeah, we are at the point now where every character has been on at least two people's lists. Yes, our next one now is one that was on actually all three, but there is still two characters above that were only on two lists and ended up ranking higher. So number three, we've got Frank Abagnale Jr. in Catch Me If You Can. Again, like I said, on all three of our lists, this performance ranked number 4 on Corey's list, number 3 on Doug's list, and number 3 on my list. Hold up, did I fuck it up?
4-3-3 or 4-4-3.
Hold up. Wait, give me 1 second. Just want to make sure I didn't screw this up. I don't think I did. I didn't. Okay, good. So yeah, Frank Abagnale Jr. Would like to start talking about this performance.
I could start. The one thing that immediately comes to mind with this one is how young Leo was in this role when he did it,
and how he can play like a teenager in it, despite the fact that he was in like his mid-20s probably when it came out.
Yeah, and he
exactly so fucking baby-faced back then.
And this was one of his. Was this his first like really breakout role other than after Titanic, or did he have another one in between this?
In between Titanic and this, yeah, The Man in the Iron Mask, The Beach. Neither of those really made much of an impact. And then this came out the same week as Gangs of New York.
Okay.
So what a fucking epic week for that guy.
Yeah. His age in this movie is definitely something that just comes to mind. Like you said, he plays a character that you see him age over what, like 15, 20 years, maybe even more, from when he's a teenager to when he's, you know, a complete adult.
Yeah, and he was 28 when the movie came out.
That's
and
crazy.
He's playing like a 16-year-old, 15-year-old or whatever in his first scenes in the film.
Yeah. And again, like this movie really isn't that. It has its funny moments, its quirky moments, but it's more on the dramatic side. And he just plays it. He plays it so well. And to work with Tom Hanks and Christopher Walken, you know, and be able to keep up with both of them is crazy, especially at the age that he was when he did this. So,
yeah, like Tom Hanks, like yes, his name is above the title. Going back to that, but he really is I would say like a main supporting character in the film. Like this really is Leo's film.
Yeah.
Only collaboration with Steven Spielberg so far, and just it was a masterful one. And like you said, he holds his own, whether with Tom Hanks, Christopher Walken. Christopher Walken, I believe, was nominated for Best Supporting Actor for this film. Amy Adams, a bunch of other great actors throughout the film.
Martin Sheen, right?
Yeah, Martin Sheen. And yeah, like he really plays a chameleon in this film. Like that's what it's required of it, whether he's pretending to be an airplane pilot or co-pilot or a doctor or whatever else, or he's just his normal teenage self or just his adult self longing for like his mother. Everything that Spielberg asks him to do, he does it incredibly well. And unlike Gangs of New York, which came out the same week, he's not completely overshadowed by his co-star. Like Daniel Day-Lewis just blew him out of the water in DiCaprio's first collaboration with Marty, and Daniel Day-Lewis was nominated for an Oscar, just like Christopher Walken was nominated for an Oscar that year. But yeah, Leo absolutely crushed it, and another one where he didn't get nominated, but I thought he should have. Where there were two films like where I thought he should have got nominated that like surrounded one that did, where I didn't necessarily think it should have. But Doug, catch me if you can.
Yeah, I mean, you guys said a lot of it. I would say I agree. I think the chameleon nature of the role was part of the reason why I want to put this on the list. It's also another role that requires him to be like charming as fuck.
Yes, you're right. We didn't mention that, but great point.
And he's good at that. That's a talent of his. He can come off as a really charming individual. I mean, that role is just about being a chameleon and charming the hell out of people.
Yeah, no coincidence.
So
it was his first blockbuster since Titanic.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, great role, great movie. Didn't feel like that this movie got the love it should have had. I don't remember it being like as popular as I thought it should have been, but you said it was a blockbuster.
It did come out like it made a lot of money. It made like 160.
Okay.
It made like 160 million in America at the time, which just for inflation, that's well over 200 million now. But it opened a week after The Two Towers, which was the big movie of the holiday season. It also opened the same week as his other performance in Gangs of New York. So there was a lot that came out that holiday season in 2002, where there might have been a little bit of cannibalization, but it ultimately was a big success. I think it was his biggest film until Inception, if I'm not mistaken, outside of Titanic. So it was like Titanic, obviously, then Catch Me If You Can.
Maybe it's just like
overtook it
over the years. It just hasn't like I don't really hear a lot about this movie.
Yeah, like when
its legacy maybe just doesn't.
The only place you really hear about it is if you read like a best of Steven Spielberg list, and like it's like, okay, where is this going to like pleasantly surprise me and where it shows up. But yeah, you don't. And John Williams' score, I feel like those are like the two like biggest, like its longest lasting legacy, are those two things. But yeah, I don't know, probably should have been a little bit bigger than it was, but I mean, PG-13, just straight up drama. It did very well. Okay, what do we got next? We've got a tie. This tie is for number 2. We've got Jordan Belfort in The Wolf of Wall Street and William Coskin Jr. in The Departed. Both of these were on 2 lists. So let's start with there was a reason why I ranked them. I put them the way I did, one lower than the other. Let's start with talking about William Coskin Jr. In The Departed, Martin Scorsese's The Departed. I had this performance ranked number 3 on my list, and Doug, you had it ranked number 1 on your list. Doug, would you like to start?
Yeah, this is a performance that I forgot about until very recently before we started recording. It's an interesting role. I mean, there's a lot of great performances in The Departed. Jack Nicholson,
Matt Damon,
Mark Wahlberg,
Alec Baldwin, Martin Sheen, Vera Farmiga.
Yeah, so that's always the hard thing about Departed is just the cast is stacked and everyone performs the shit out of it. But I thought Leonardo DiCaprio definitely held his own in his performance. I think he had an interesting. He had to play a lot of different things in this movie. Like he had to be a cop. He had to be a bad guy. You know, he had to deliver on the tension, on the moments of tension, where could he get found out?
Yeah, you're watching him break down like under the pressure, like throughout that film.
Yeah, I mean, he had a lot of different pieces. He had a lot of different things he had to portray in this movie, just based on the character and what the character was and the high stress scenario, and like he's one thing to the cops and another thing when he's interacting with Jack Nicholson, and so I think it's just another performance by him where I thought he did a lot of different things really, really well. And it doesn't hurt that I thought the material he had was really, really good. And I'm not really an accent guy, so I don't know. It seemed like his Boston accent was good. I haven't heard a lot of complaints about it. But yeah, it seemed like he did a good job making you feel like he's, was he a Southie or something?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean that's why I chose the role. Is I just thought the performance was really, really good. Like I said, he did a lot of things really, really well. And Scorsese, which I'm sure helped elevate it, and the script is awesome.
Yeah, William Monahan's script is super tight. Remake of a Japanese film, Infernal Affairs. But yeah, this was his third collaboration with Martin Scorsese, and the first great one, in my opinion, in one of his films. We talked a little bit briefly about Gangs of New York. His second performance was The Aviator, similar to The Revenant. That's the one where I thought it was like kind of an Oscar baity type of film and performance.
I didn't really care for that one.
Which I didn't like. I don't love the film. I think gives a very strong performance in it, but like unlike Catch Me If You Can and Departed, where it's more like just going for an entertaining, like making an entertaining film.
Mm-hmm.
Like though that one wasn't that. So yeah, Catch Me If You Can and The Departed are those two films where I think he should have been nominated for Oscars, but wasn't. The weird thing about this film is that they campaigned all of the male actors in supporting roles. I think, and I guess probably Vera Farmiga won for Best Supporting Actress too, if I had to guess, because she is a supporting character, not a lead, despite being the only like female actress in the film. But because Leo was running a campaign for Blood Diamond for Best Actor, which he did get nominated for, he went in Best Supporting Actor along with Jack Nicholson, Mark Wahlberg, et cetera, for Best Supporting Actor. And it turned out that Mark Wahlberg was the only person who got nominated for the Academy Award that year, which again goes back to how we were talking about Boogie Nights and Titanic and those two. The Departed is probably Mark Wahlberg's second best performance of his career, but there in no way, shape, or form was better than Leo's performance.
Yeah, it's also like way more in Mark Wahlberg's wheelhouse than Leo's.
Oh yeah,
wheelhouse.
I mean he is the Boston guy.
yeah. So it's kind of like
he just had to be a Boston prick, fucking cop.
Yeah.
Like it had no problems doing that.
Yeah. So I don't know that I agree. Mark Wahlberg gave a great performance, but I felt like Leo had to stretch more than Wahlberg did.
Leo had to stretch a lot more.
Yeah, so that's the only thing that I would say about Wahlberg.
But yeah, similar to
Jack Nicholson, was that Jack Nicholson's last truly great performance?
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
yes, it was. He made two films after that, both of which made less than a dent or a dent. It was the Bucket List with Morgan Freeman, and I think it's the one with Reese Witherspoon and Paul Rudd and Owen Wilson. How do you do? Is that the name of it? It's a James L. Brooks film.
I've never heard of a movie called How Do You Do?
Then that's probably not the name. That was his final. How Do You Know? All right, I got a couple of the words right. That was his final performance back in 2010. But yeah, he should have went out on The Departed, because yes, it was a great performance. It was Jack over the top. It was like what we love about Jack Nicholson. Like it was like it's very very complimentary to like The Shining and Batman, where it's just like Jack going all in, acting crazy. But Leo had the much tougher performance than what Jack did, than what Mark Wahlberg had, what Alec Baldwin had. I would say that him and Matt Damon had the hardest performances in that film, but Leo ultimately had the best performance. And it was very similar to Catch Me If You Can. It was like chameleon, like because he had to be different people based on which characters he was interacting with, because he was an undercover cop in with the Irish mob, and yeah, this was the first performance post Titanic where I'm like, damn, or no, it's not. It's the second performance post Titanic where I'm like, god damn, this is the actor of like that I'm gonna hopefully be watching like for the rest of my life, and he's just gonna continue crushing it roll after roll after roll. And what are we 17 years later? He still is, and he still is in Marty movies, based on everything we're hearing about Killers of the Flower Moon. So yeah, that's all I have to say about The Departed. And Frank Koskin Jr. So now we'll dive into the other half of this tie, which was Jordan Belfort in Martin Scorsese's The Wolf of Wall Street. I had this at number 1 on my list of performances, and Corey had this at number 3 on his list of performances. So Corey, you want to let me catch a breath and you can talk about Jordan Belfort?
Yeah. This one, similar to Rick Dalton, really let Leo stretch his like comedic prowess. I mean, and almost like I think this movie and this performance is probably more absurd than anything he's ever done with Tarantino, which is pretty crazy. You know, based on a true story, real character, correct? And
yes, correct.
Yes.
Yeah. And just the excess type of life that Jordan Belfort lived in, you know, in the 80s, it just, you know, comes center stage, and Leo just takes this role and he just turns into like this just like monster and just crazy person throughout. And also he had like every other Scorsese movie, there's a great supporting cast behind him, but in this one specifically, I feel like Marty casted the supporting roles perfectly to help elevate Leo even more.
Oh yeah, whether it's Jonah Hill, Margot Robbie, John Bernthal, Rob Reiner, Matthew McConaughey, a ton of excellent actors.
And excellent actors that are great. They're great in dramatic roles, but can also do comedic really well too. So that, I think all of that like was just such a good recipe to just elevate the main performance in this movie, which was Jordan Belfort. And just from beginning to end, like his performance is just insane, and it just keeps being elevated throughout the movie. Like, what else is he going to say or do in this movie? And I think, again, similar to with like Hugh Glass, it was a bit of a different type of role for him. Like, we've never really, I don't think we really ever saw him with this type of performance.
Definitely his most comedic performance.
Right? Yeah.
I mean, the scene where he's fucking on the Quaaludes and is struggling to get into his car is like one of the best comedic performances that is relying on like your body, like doing the work.
Very good physical performance.
Yes, incredible physical comedic performance that I did not know that the guy had it in him.
Yep.
but yeah, I mean, this is his film. I mean, he is the Wolf of Wall Street. Like, he carries a 3-hour film from top to bottom, despite having plenty of amazing support around him. He gets to do so much. I mean, just all the various like speeches that he gives throughout the film, where he's hyping people up to those comedic moments, to the more serious aspects. It is just balls to the wall, like Leonardo DiCaprio crushing it. And it's my, like I said, favorite performance of his entire career. Favorite performance in a Martin Scorsese film, obviously, since it's top for my career. When we get to our next pick, which is a supporting role, it was tough to like go between these two, but ultimately one was a supporting role and one was you get them for 3 hours. So I think that played a part in it being number one. But yeah, this was the other film in between The Revenant, or that came out before The Revenant, and Once Upon a Time in Hollywood was the one that came out after, where I believe he should have like won his overdue award, but it was in the middle of the reconnaissance. So Matthew McConaughey won for Dallas Buyers Club.
Yeah.
And it was at this point where I'm like, what the fuck is DiCaprio going to have to do to win an Academy Award? Like, do they just not like him? But he won it, 2 years later, for The Revenant.
Just had to wrestle a bear.
Yeah, he had to just like suffer in the freezing cold and get mauled by a bear. And that is what it took. But yeah, I'm very excited to see his performance in Killers of the Flower Moon, and see if it can possibly top this one, because we've gotten 5 good to great performances in Martin Scorsese's movies so far, but it seems like this one is going to be on that like higher tier than some of the others. Like, I'm confident it'll be better than Gangs of New York and The Aviator, and likely Shutter Island as well. Maybe even The Departed, who knows? But from everything I'm hearing, it sounds like it's a tough role to pull off, and he does it. So can't wait.
Not too much longer. Soon.
Nope, only a couple weeks away, which is why we're doing this episode now. We're a few weeks away. By the time we throw this on YouTube, probably like a week away. But do you have anything to add about his performance as Jordan Belfort, or anything about Wolf of Wall Street, Doug? I know it was originally on your list before you did some major reshuffling.
No, I mean, I agree. He's good in this role. I mean, very, very good. I don't know. It's part of the reason why I took it off, and I think it's just I didn't really connect with this character as much as some of his others. Probably because this guy's not.
He's a piece of shit.
Yeah, he's like, I've mentioned like how he's like all these charming characters and how charming he is, and this one's just like he's kind of a despicable human being. But I mean, he does a great job. I mean, there's nothing. I mean, it's a great performance, and could easily put him on the top 5 list, as I did at one point in time. It's been a while since I've seen this movie. Like I vaguely remember the Quaalude scene, but I kind of want to go back and see it because.
Yeah, go back. Even if you just watch the one scene on YouTube, like, do that. And Kyle Chandler, another actor that he just plays off of incredibly well, like the scene with him on the boat. Basically like taunting Kyle Chandler and like raining the money down. It's just, God, piece of shit character. You watch his decline throughout the film, but man, does he kill it? Yeah, he starts the film just as like a naive young guy, which is sort of ridiculous since he was probably in his like late 30s or early 40s when making it. But yeah, he must have been in his late 30s at the time. But yeah, absolutely crushes it. So let's move on then to our number 1 performance. It was on all 3 of our lists. It is Calvin Candy in Django Unchained by Quentin Tarantino. For this film, Doug and I both had it ranked as number 2, and Corey had it ranked as number 1. Um, so let's dive into his first collaboration with Quentin Tarantino.
I think this was, for me at least, this was a eye-opening role where I was like, holy shit. Like, Leo is talented, but like this is like another notch, like a whole nother level. Like the physicality piece that we've been talking about with him throughout these other films, it really is utilized in probably, I don't think he's done another role, maybe other than like The Revenant, that might compare, but the scene in the dining room, like that whole monologue, and you know what he brings to the role from a physical aspect is just like, it's so unique and crazy, and it just makes the character, like like you said, he's a supporting role in this movie, and when everyone sees it, you immediately remember Calvin Candy.
Yeah,
in a 3-hour movie. So very well done.
Yeah, I mean, during his scenes of the film, I mean, he kind of takes over the movie. This is another one which is, it's strange. He wasn't even nominated for an Academy Award.
Makes no sense.
Christoph Waltz won Best Supporting Actor for Django in this film, but this is one where it's like it's like category fraud. Christoph Waltz is the co-lead of the film. Him and Jamie Foxx are co-leads. Like Leo is the supporting actor in the film.
I don't even not to Christoph Waltz is great, but like I don't even really remember his performance that well in this movie. I mean, Christoph Waltz's big performance is the one that he got all the accolades for, Inglourious Basterds. Yeah, I mean
he won the Academy Award for both of those.
Yep.
That's the movie though where like I'm like, wow, Christoph Waltz, like,
yes, it's definitely the more memorable of the two.
The Academy loves him.
They love when he works with Tarantino for sure. Hopefully he's in the Movie Critic. Tarantino's
Django, it's Leo's who I think about.
Yeah, I mean, I think both of them absolutely crush it in the film. I just don't think Christoph Waltz is a supporting role. Where I think if you put Leo like in that spot as best supporting actor, like he tops Alan Arkin in Argo, Robert De Niro in Silver Linings Playbook, Philip Seymour Hoffman in The Master, and Tommy Lee Jones in Lincoln. Philip Seymour Hoffman, even, that's like, is that really a supporting role? That might be a co-lead with Joaquin Phoenix. I don't know. But yeah, Leo, he's, for being a hateful, racist piece of shit in the film, I mean, it's easily his most evil role that he's ever done. He is beyond charismatic, and like you can't take your eyes off the performance. So yeah, I hope he ends up in Tarantino's final film. I hope Christoph Waltz ends up in his final film. There are so many of his repertory players that I hope end up making it into the film. Samuel L. Jackson, John Travolta, Uma Thurman, Brad Pitt, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, I know none of them will be the main character, but I hope they all make an appearance. But man, does Leo shine under the direction and dialogue of Quentin Tarantino in a similar way that he does under the direction of Marty. Anything else that we would like to say about Calvin Candy and Django Unchained? Corey, you brought up the monologue that he had. I mean, just the fact that he really like fucked up his hand and broke that like glass, and then continued the scene and smearing blood on Kerry Washington's face. That it's just bonkers.
Yeah, and that's the shot that they went with. I mean, it was completely just ad-libbed. A lot of it, crazy.
It is crazy.
And I mean, and I don't even not even discrediting at all Kerry Washington. Like, I mean, she just continued.
Yeah, she went with it. She had probably had the harder performance to have to go with it than he did. Like, this motherfucker's like putting his bloody hand like on my face. But yeah, the two of them, just everyone in that room just crushes it in that scene.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see, if he ends up in, Tarantino's next movie, because
hey, now that the writer strike's over, we should find out. We're gonna find out a lot of news pretty soon. I mean, we're gonna need the SAG strike then before casting comes out, but we're getting closer. I mean, this film would have started shooting already if it wasn't for these two strikes, which had to happen. It's important that they happened, but
absolutely
can't wait to see what Tarantino has in store. But all right, then just summarize each of our top fives. Corey had Hugh Glass in The Revenant at number 5, Frank Abagnale Jr. in Catch Me If You Can at number 4, Jordan Belfort in The Wolf of Wall Street at number 3, Rick Dalton in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood at number 2, and Calvin Candy in Django Unchained at number 1. Doug had Rick Dalton as number 5, Dom Cobb from Inception at number 4, Frank Abagnale Jr. at number 3, Calvin Candy at number 2, and William Costigan Jr. in The Departed at number 1. And then for myself, I had Jack Dawson in Titanic at number 5, Frank Abagnale Jr. at number 4, another junior with William Costigan Jr. at number 3, Calvin Candy at number 2, and Jordan Belfort at number 1. So this guy has had an incredibly stellar career so far, and we can't wait to see the performances that he's got coming up. And next up is Killers of the Flower Moon, co-starring Robert De Niro and Lily Gladstone, Jesse Plemons, among others, Brendan Fraser. So yeah, that's all we've got today regarding our main topic. Thank you again for listening. You can follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. Subscribe on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Podcasts, whatever you prefer. And again, if you're invested in our box office pools or just want to hear more about how the films this fall are performing so far, stick around for some end credit chatter. So if you've stuck around, let's get into that right now. We're going to talk a bit about the fall box office pool. I just want to give a quick follow-up from our last episode about the summer box office. Gran Turismo is going to end up topping The Boogeyman at number 22 for the summer. At number 21 for the summer. Doug, you picked it with the number 22 pick, so it was even a better pick than we said it was during the last one, even if it didn't make the money we were hoping it would make, based on how strong the film was. But everything else at this point should be finalized from the rankings in our last episode. Dead Reckoning isn't topping Indiana Jones. Talk to Me isn't topping No Hard Feelings. But as for our fall pool, so I have officially lost a film thanks to Taylor Swift. It was unofficial, but now it's official. Ordinary Angels has moved to February 23rd, 2024, so it will not be coming out this year. So I'm down a film, which gives you two definitely an edge on me. I was hoping this was going to be like a breakout type of film, but if it is, it will have to be during the winter-spring box office. So for your 8 films and my 7 films, at the moment, I am in third place with $3 million for Dumb Money. Pretty pathetic total so far. Its first weekend was like 8 theaters in the country, and its second weekend was like a expansion to not wide release. It opens in wide release this coming weekend, so we'll see how it goes from there. My assumption is not too well, since there's a lot of movies coming out this weekend. We've got Saw 10, The Creator. We got Paw Patrol, which is obviously direct competition for Del Money. But yeah, I don't have another film now until November when The Martian King's Daughter opens. And just to re-summarize what I do have left, it's that, The Marvels, Napoleon, The Bike Riders, Migration, and The Color Purple. Doug, you're at $25 million after 2 weekends of A Haunting in Venice. That's your only film that's open so far. You have The Creator opening this weekend, The Exorcist opening the weekend after, Dear David right after that, And then you've got Trolls Band Together, Wish, Wonka, and Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom. So as we've talked about, we know Aquaman and Trolls Band Together definitely coming out. We've talked about Wish and Wonka, whether both of those actually will. We should find out pretty soon. None of them have started like the second round of their marketing yet. So we'll see. But A Haunting in Venice, not the greatest performance. Sort of similar to, I guess, Death on the Nile. I think it had a slightly bigger opening, but hasn't done anything special so far. You'll take it.
As bad as it could have been.
Yeah, it's better than the $3 million I've got from Dumb Money. And I believe you took it later than I took Dumb Money. So
yeah, what's interesting, so I've got The Creator coming up. The reviews or what I've been hearing, the chatter has been that the movie's actually really good.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to make money though.
It's not going to make money. That's going to be the problem.
Yeah, it's an original sci-fi movie, so like it's tough for them to break out.
I did hear it's good though, which I know I'll see it. I'll be giving money, Doug.
I've been hearing it's really good, but
yeah, I've heard like it's on the high mixed positive, like pretty much the very good range. I think it was at 80% the last time I looked on Rotten Tomatoes, but like the people who like it seem to love it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm kind of excited for it. I wish people wearing those goofy outfits and sports stadiums would
so weird.
Yeah, make an impact like they did.
Make a dent at all.
Like they did for Smile last year.
Yeah,
which is officially has a sequel coming on the way. Smile.
Yeah, makes sense.
But it doesn't seem like that works. Oh, Benedict Wong is in Creator.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. Huh. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's not going to make money, but
yeah, I believe Saw is projected to win this weekend. Shocker, the 10th film in a series. I mean, it's horror. Horror is like guaranteed to make a certain amount of money. So we'll see though how The Creator performs. Maybe it could be a word of mouth hit. I mean, October is fairly barren because everyone ran out of the way of Taylor Swift. So I mean, it's really The Exorcist is the only competition after The Creator opens. So we'll see how it goes. But Corey's continuing his reign of dominance throughout 2023. He's currently in first place with 93 million for the combined totals of my 3 weekends of My Big Fat Greek Wedding 3 and The Nun 2. So The Nun 2 is performing pretty solid, having some decent legs, which is good to see for the Conjuring universe. As I mentioned, you have Saw 10 coming up this weekend, Corey. We talked about all of Doug's movies. And then after that, you've got Killers of the Flower Moon, The Hunger Games, The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, Saltburn, Poor Things, and Ferrari. So The Hunger Games recently just started their second round of marketing, dropped a new trailer. So that's definitely coming out in November. So, Corey, all 8 of your movies are definitely coming out. You're heavy on the independent side towards the end of the year, but you got another guaranteed horror success story to a degree with Saw, Killers of the Flower Moon. I think it's looking at like 35 million for its opening as of now. Hunger Games looks like it could be a big hit. And then we'll see the varying degrees of successes from like those independent film festival movies in Saltburn, Poor Things, and Ferrari. But yeah, The Nun 2 was worked out well for you. Big Fat Greek Wedding 3 didn't really do much, but I think The Nun 2 made it up for you. All right.
The Nun 2 ended up surpassing the first one. It did, right?
The Nun 2 has not surpassed the first one. It'll make a good amount less than the first one, but it has pulled off 3 weeks. It has pulled off 3 weeks at number 1 since it's came out. The reviews are better, and it's had 3 weeks at number 1. So it topped A Haunting in Venice last week. It was a close battle when A Haunting in Venice came out, and then it had a close battle with The Expendables 4, which opened this week, which none of us drafted, and it's a good thing because it only opened $8 million.
Man.
So that series has continued its downward slope, and based on this, it's unlikely we get an Expendables 5. But yeah, anyone have anything else to add about the fall box office?
So for Murph, what do you think? Because I know you were scared about Napoleon. Now with the strike ending, you think that's going to be safe?
There was a reason why I was. I'm worried about Napoleon and the fact that it's the same distributor as Dumb Money, and they're having a bomb with that and looking like a bomb. So I'm worried they push Napoleon for that reason. To next year. Still nervous about The Color Purple. Less nervous. I'm more confident the Color Purple will come out than Wonka, which Doug drafted. Both Warner Brothers films. But I'm still a little nervous. I mean, if the actors strike get resolved, like very soon, then I'll be much more confident in Napoleon coming out. But these companies have to make decisions about the November movies, like basically now.
Yeah.
If something can get pushed, or they need to start their next round of marketing. Yep. We got the Hunger Games trailer this week. Napoleon comes out the week after, so we should be getting another round of Napoleon marketing like pretty soon, if it is actually coming out in November.
I definitely see Wonka being pushed before Color Purple.
But, yeah, so we'll see.
Because we haven't even seen another trailer for Wonka at all, right?
We've only seen one trailer for both Wonka and The Color Purple. I'm just seeing The Color Purple trailer a lot more in theaters than Wonka. So maybe it's the movies I'm seeing. Maybe it has something to do with the release date. We'll see. But yeah, unless anyone else has anything to add, we'll catch everyone up on next week with how the box office is going.
Yeah. I don't know anything else.
All right. Then as always, this has been Corey, Doug, and Murph at Live Breathe Film. We'll see you again next time, film fans.
Bye.